So let's talk about that AI assistant you use. We're all told it's supposed to make us smarter, right? More productive. But what if it's doing the exact opposite? What if there's a serious hidden cost to all that helpfulness? I mean, the promise is incredible, isn't it? You just hand off some boring, tedious tasks to an AI, and boom, you're suddenly faster, way more efficient. We've seen all the studies, right? Huge productivity jumps for everybody from call center workers to high-end consultants. On the surface, it really seems like a total win-win. Okay, but here's the uncomfortable question that a really fascinating new research paper is digging into. As we're all getting these tasks done faster, are we actually getting any better at what we do, or is the AI just doing all the heavy lifting, while our own skills just kind of sit there and get rusty? And that right there, that highlights this potential trade-off that, let's be honest, most of us probably never even think about. It's the choice between just getting a task done versus truly learning from the process. Think about it like this. It's the perfect analogy. It's like always using a calculator in math class. Sure, you get the right answer and you get it fast. But if you lean on that calculator for every single problem, you never actually build that fundamental understanding of how to solve it on your own. You're just offloading the thinking. So the big question is, are we all doing the exact same thing right now with AI? And this visual, man, it just illustrates the core idea so brilliantly. Traditionally, the path to getting something done involved, a learning phase. You'd have to struggle a bit, you'd make some mistakes, and then you'd finally figure it out. And that's how you build real skill. But now, with AI, there's this super tempting shortcut. It's a direct path to the solution that lets you leapfrog that entire crucial learning step. So you might be wondering, how in the world do you actually measure something like this? Well, these researchers, they came up with a really clever experiment designed to do just that, to isolate this very effect. Here's what they did. They got a group of 52 experienced software developers, and they gave them a challenge. Learn and use a brand new, totally unfamiliar coding library. And this setup is great because it's pretty much a perfect mimic of a real-world scenario, right? A professional having to pick up a new skill on the job. The setup itself was really simple, but also kind of elegant. They just split the developers into two groups. You had your control group, who had to learn the library the old-fashioned way. But then you had the treatment group, and they were given access to a powerful AI coding assistant. And the whole experiment was structured really carefully. First, both groups had to complete a coding task with this new library. Then, right after, everyone took a quiz to test what they actually understood about it. And here's the key part. No AI was allowed during that quiz. And then finally, they all filled out a survey about how it went. All right, let's get to the results, because this is where everything we think we know about AI and productivity gets completely turned on its head. So first up, let's talk about speed. And this was the first huge surprise. I mean, we all just assume AI makes you faster, don't we? But check this out. In this experiment, there was no statistically significant difference in how long it took them to finish. The AI group just wasn't any quicker. And it seems like some of them actually spent a bunch of extra time just fiddling with prompts and talking to the AI. But what about the learning? This is where the real bombshell drops. When it came time for that quiz, the one measuring their actual skills and knowledge, the group without any AI help scored way, way higher. They actually learned the material better. It's pretty wild. Yeah, let's just put a number on it to see how stark this is. The group that used the AI assistant, they scored a full 17% worse on the skills test. I mean, that's huge. Think about it, that's almost a 2-letter grade difference. So yeah, they got the task done, but they remembered way less about how to actually do it. And when they dug a little deeper, they found that the single biggest skill gap was in debugging, the ability to find and fix your own mistakes. And that is so critical, because if you're using an AI, a huge part of your job is catching it when it screws up. The folks in the control group, well, they had to fix their own errors, and because of that, they got way better at it. Okay, so does this all mean we should just ditch our AI assistants? Well, not so fast. Because when the researchers looked at the qualitative data, like the screen recordings, a much more nuanced picture started to emerge. It turns out the problem wasn't the AI tool itself, not at all. It was all about how people were using it. And the researchers figured this out by literally watching the screen recordings of every single person who took part in the study. And this table just breaks it down perfectly. They basically found two kinds of users. First, you've got the AI delegator. This is the person who just says, hey, AI, do the work for me.
And yeah, they were the fastest, finishing in about 19.5 minutes. But they learned almost nothing, scoring a pretty dismal 39% on the quiz. But then you have the engaged inquirer. This person was a little slower, sure, taking about 24 minutes, but they used the AI like a partner, asking it questions to really understand the why behind the code. And their quiz score? A whopping 86%. The difference is just staggering.
And that right there, that's the fundamental choice, isn't it? Are you just kind of passively offloading the thinking, just pushing a button to get an answer? Or are you actively using the tool to help build up your own understanding? Because as we're seeing, the difference in the outcome is just, it's massive. So what does being one of these engaged inquirers actually look like in practice? Well, the people who scored really high, they weren't just saying, write the code for me. No, they were asking conceptual questions. They'd get the AI to generate some code, but then they'd ask follow-up questions to make sure they understood it. They were basically using the assistant as a thinking partner, not just, a code monkey.
And all of this really brings us to the final, and I think most crucial takeaway. It really boils down to a choice that you and I make every single time we open up one of those AI chat windows.
This quote from the researchers who actually did the study, it just says it all perfectly. AI-enhanced productivity is not a shortcut to competence. You can absolutely use AI to look more productive in the short term, but that is simply not the same thing as actually becoming more competent. At the end of the day, the responsibility for learning, it's still on us. The tool can be an incredible accelerator, or it can be a crutch that lets our skills get weak. The choice really just comes down to whether we decide to stay mentally engaged. So that really leaves all of us with a pretty big question to think about, right? The next time you open up that AI assistant, what's it going to be? Is it going to be your delegator or your collaborator? Are you taking the shortcut that bypasses learning, or are you using it as a tool to build real, lasting skills? Because the answer to that question is going to shape not just how productive you are, but how competent you'll be for years to come.